you hanging with us. That's Tone. I'm Rob. We are Sports Take. We are joined right now by the man who covers the Phillies and the Flyers at a very high level for Crossing Broad. You could follow him on Twitter at @SanFilly. And, of course, check out his podcast, Snow the Goalie, and Crossed Up as well. Ant, what's going on, my man? How you make it out?
Hey, boys. Good to see you guys again.
Good to see you, too.
Likewise.
I appreciate it. All right. So, on a serious note, I want to start with this one, Ant, before we get into what's going on with the Flyers. And it's been a bit of a struggle lately, and Owen Tippett potential extension, et cetera. The Carter Hart thing. And, the tip of the iceberg, I guess, was when he took the indefinite leave. And then, we kind of knew this has been hanging around for a very long time also, by the way, but Carter Hart and 4 other teammates on the Canadian junior team from 2018. Let's walk through all of it, because it's kind of convoluted in some ways. It's being investigated for sexual assault.
Yeah, and I think that the fair way to say it still, because the London, Ontario police are not holding their press conference to announce charges and who they're against and who's being charged with what until February 5th. So anything that we say before that would only be speculative. So I think, in fairness, the best way to say it is that there are 5 players from that 2018 Team Canada World Junior team, including Carter Hart, who have asked for a leave of absence, requested a leave of absence from their teams. And they were granted. And then a report came out that the 5 players from that team have been contacted by the London police and given a week to 2 weeks, depending on their travel arrangements, to arrive and turn themselves in London. Now, we don't officially know if any of these players are going to be charged, but you're connecting dots at this point, right? And there's a lot of whether there's smoke there's fire kind of situation. And you're right, this is something that has been it's been out there for forever. I said on our podcast this morning, I was first alerted to this in the summer of 2022. It is now January of 2024, so 18 months. I've been hearing things. Of course, we don't report anything here because we're in Philadelphia, right? And this is taking place up in London, Ontario, Canada. Right. I don't have London, Ontario police sources as much as I'd like to, right, for this story. But so I can't report anything. But of course, everybody talks. You hear a lot of what's going on. So there are so many people that are going to be dragged through the mud on this. Players, organizations like Hockey Canada, like the London police, who originally closed the book on this and said, oh yeah, no charges at all, and then only reopened the case under public pressure in April of 22. The National Hockey League, how long did they know that that these players were involved? The National Hockey League's Players Association, which may or may not have tried to influence the NHL when that NHL report came out. The Canadian government, which decided they were going to get themselves involved. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of details that we don't know what's what. And again, charges are charges. Nothing is nobody is found guilty until they go to court. So there's a lot that's there. But man, is this going to be a big story in the world of sports in North America for the next however long it's going.
Real quick follow, and again, I'm with you. It's one of those things where it's hard to be patient. We're in such a salacious society where everybody wants to jump to a conclusion. The details of it, if true, are ugly, to say the least. There was a civil suit as well, correct? And then after the civil suit, there was further charges brought about, correct?
Well, yeah, and again, we don't even know what they are.
Right.
We just know that there's charges that are coming and we'll find out what they are on February 5th. And I hope Facebook is prepared for the crush that they're going to have watching that live stream. It's not like they're using StreamYard and going through YouTube like the smart people do. They're going to be trying to have that on their Facebook live stream, and that's when we'll find out for sure. So we're still 10 days away from that. We'll get all the detail, or more details, I should say, at that point, and then it'll be just a matter of, he said, she said, who do you believe, and they're going to play out just like any other major court thing has played out, over the years that we've all followed on television and online. And there's going to be, the court of public opinion is going to be far more fascinating than the actual event itself, probably. Right. So, yeah.
And thanks again for coming on, by the way. With so much optimism, surrounding the Philadelphia Flyers right now, with their latest resurgence, speak on the impact that this Carter Hart situation is or could be having on, the Flyers locker room, man. Especially again with all the optimism surrounding this team. This team's on the up and up right now. Try to speak on how the situation is impacting that organization, how they're handling it, and also impacting the players as well.
Yeah, I mean, so from an organizational perspective, I think that they've done an okay job with this, in the sense that it's obviously difficult. They can't talk about anything, but if you go back in time and you look at what the Flyers did going back to the end of last season into the summer and the like, once Danny Briere took over as the GM, they traded for a goalie with NHL experience. They signed a goalie that they had in the system to an entry-level contract. They gave a new contract to Sam Urson. They drafted 2 more goaltenders. I mean, they did their due diligence in preparing in case this came to fruition, in case something like this happened. They were prepared. So you got to give them credit. And then, even Danny Briere, who had a scheduled press conference on Wednesday that was scheduled before this was even announced, right? So this was, the Flyers could have bailed on that press conference. They didn't. Danny read a statement and then answered a couple of questions, and I think he handled himself just fine in that regard. So you look at it from that perspective, Tone, I think that they did a fine job. As far as for the players on the team, obviously this has to have an impact. This is a guy who you've gone to battle with every day. You're at practice every day. You hang out with him, on the road, at home, whatever, team functions, non-team functions. Your buds, your teammates, your friends. And here's a guy that gets dragged into this conversation. Whether it's accurate or not, we don't know. But I mean, imagine your friends and one of your friends that you're close with, and you're not expecting it. How would that impact you? And I think that we got to remember the human element, right? Sometimes in these cases, and I think that could have an impact, and it could be part of what they're going through right now. They're just off. They're not right these last few games. And I think that, I'm not saying that's the sole reason. I think that some players have not been playing well even when they were winning a little bit. But I think that certainly exacerbates, not even play that they have.
I want to just last one regarding Carter Hart. Not to continue to go this direction yet, but I just want a clarification. I mean, there's a possibility we don't see him play again as a Flyer.
I think there's a very real possibility of that. I mean, if everything comes out, like I said, 10 days from now, and he's charged, again, let's just speculate for a second. Let's say he is charged.
Yeah.
Then I've got to imagine that's it. I mean, that the Flyers will separate themselves from him. At least make him a non-rostered player. They might still have his rights or whatever. I mean, if it depends on how you look at it. I mean, the league is going to dictate a lot more of this than I think the team is, on how they're going to handle the players. So I think that's kind of it. But there is a very real chance that he has played his last game as a Flyer.
Wow. All right. So just to segue out of that, not easy for sure, but just back to what Tone was talking about, is this more? I mean, there's some troubling signs. They've been digging themselves big holes lately, 3-0, et cetera. And even, some of it you understand, they're maybe coming back to earth a little bit. How much of it is, in your estimation, just that? Like, you know what? They were kind of playing over their head.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's smart, Rob. I mean, that's the way to put it. I mean, and we've been on our pod, we've been, cautioning fans like, hey, listen, enjoy this. This is fun. This is great. They're playing, well above expectation. They're probably better than we all thought,
Right.
Coming into the season, but don't go too far. Don't raise your expectation level, because this is a long season and the Flyers have some of their toughest parts of their schedule coming up, and where they're in one right now. I mean, there's even one in March. It's even more ridiculous than this, but they're in a tough stretch of games against some really good teams. And there was always the danger of, the league catching up to them a little bit, figuring out what they're doing. And then, the fact that they're a hard-working team can only carry you so far. And so there was always the danger that you would hit a rut. The good news about it is that when you're in hockey, because of the loser point, which is, sometimes you lose in overtime or shootout, you still get a point in the standings. Because of that, it's harder to fall out of a playoff spot than it is to climb back into one. So getting off to a good start gave the Flyers a little bit of rope here, to kind of hang in there. So they've lost 4 straight games, all of them in regulation, and really aren't in no different a spot than they were in before they started losing. Yes, they were in second place and now they're in third, but the reality of it was that Carolina had several games in hand. So Carolina was always going to be ahead of them in that spot, even though they were officially in second place. But they really haven't fallen there. They still have a 5-point cushion between them and the 4th place New Jersey Devils, who still have a couple games in hand as well. But the cushion still exists even after 4 losses. There are teams that are behind. I mean, look at a team like Edmonton, who's won 15 straight games, and they're still in 3rd place. Okay, so they had a climb. So that
is wild.
They won 15 straight games and they're still in 3rd place.
Oh my God!
Right, and so that's what I'm saying. It's harder to climb than it is to fall, because of the loser point. So the advantage is still there for the Flyers to come out of this and hang around and maybe steal a playoff spot. But they're gonna have to figure it out here in the next. We got one more game before the All-Star break. Then they take like 10 days off, and then they hit the ground running again with another tough stretch of their schedule. But if they can kind of hang around 500 for the next month, we're only talking about 12, 13 games total. If they can hang around that, you go into March in a playoff spot probably at 500 the rest of the next month. So it's going to be a really good finish for them. They just have to kind of tread water a little bit here.
And I got to ask you this about the Flyers. With more than half the season already done, have you personally began to identify players who they should build around, or at least have you began to identify players that they can maybe start to incorporate inside their core guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, news breaks today that they signed Owen Tippett to an 8-year contract, 49 point something million dollars. It's an average of 6.2 million a year. That's a great deal. That's a great deal when you think about it, because Owen Tippett's going to score 30 goals this year, at least 30 goals. Assuming he comes back from injury relatively soon, which I think he will be. And if he's a 30-goal guy every year at $6.2 million, that's a steal. The cap's going to go up next year. It's going to go up again the year after that and keep going up. And his contract's staying the same through the age of 32. So like that's going to be a really good contract for them in a few years, because he's going to be making the same as middle of the lineup guys on other teams. So that's a nice signing by the team. I think Joel Farabee has had a really nice bounce back season. I think there was a concern last year. I mean, I know he was coming off the neck surgery, would he ever kind of develop into that, top end player that they thought he was going to be when they drafted him in the first round? And he's had a really strong season. He's been one of their best players this year. And so you start looking at that and go, okay, there you go. There's another guy who's going to be part of this core going forward. And, we talk so much about a guy like Morgan Frost because he's been in John Tortorella's doghouse so many times, healthy scratch multiple times during the year. Same thing last year. Since he had a heart-to-heart with the coach, he went into the office and they aired their differences. And he's been put back in the lineup, with the exception of last night's loss in Detroit. He and that line has been sensational. It's been him and Atkinson and Farabee. They've been really, really good. And he was averaging more than a point a game, really dangerous on the offensive side. So maybe you sit there and go, this is the Morgan Frost that they were hoping for these last 5 years. This was the guy that they wanted to get. Again, it's a small sample size, but if he continues to do it, well, then that says something, right? And so then you look around and you got guys on defense. Cam York's had a nice year. They just traded for the Jamie Drysdale kid, who they think is going to be something special, right? There are pieces here that are going to be a big part of this organization going forward. So there's a lot to like about what's coming for the Flyers.
I wanted to ask you about Drysdale. I know it's a very small sample size, and he was sick, and that threw everything off a little bit. But from what you've seen, is he bringing to the table what they hope? The right-handed shot, the captain of the power play, solid, 1D pairing. Is he there?
No, he's not there yet. But I mean, there are things that you see. I mean, I think the special teams side of things is where you really see his value.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a smooth skater. But then here's the thing. I thought there was two different parts to him on the power play, and he's only been playing the second power play because, to be fair to Igor Zamula, since they moved him onto the top power play unit, power play started scoring goals, right? Guys getting shots to the net, and they're getting rebounds and putting them in. So credit to him. And so that's made Drysdale be part of the second power play unit. But they had a game against, I think it was against Dallas, where he what they say, walks the line, right? So it's moving laterally across the top of the zone on the power play.
Patience on the power
right.
play.
And so he walks the line, and what he's doing is he's pulling the defenders away from him, and it opens up a teammate. So he makes a pass. You got Travis Sanheim on the half wall. He takes a shot. Goalie makes a save, but there's a rebound, and Cam Atkinson's able to put it in for a goal. That's great. Then they go and they play against Tampa the other night, and the first power play, Tampa's not moving with them. Their penalty killers are staying put. They're like, oh, we know you're not going to shoot it out there, Jamie. So you got to find something else out. The Flyers adjust, and they flip them, and they put Sanheim at the top and move Drysdale onto the half wall. And now they're going to move with Sanheim because they know he'll shoot. And Drysdale, who doesn't normally shoot, shoots and scores a goal. Right. And so that's a thing. It's like, okay, there's that element to his game as well, which we had not seen yet. And so there's a lot of good stuff there. He has a lot that he's got to work on in his own zone. He's got some defensive deficiencies that I think are more a product of the fact that he was in Anaheim, which was not a very good defensive team, not well coached defensively. And I think that there's things that he's going to have to figure out and work. And Bradshaw is one of the best defensive coaches in hockey. I think that will help him. But so far, so good with what you're seeing with Jamie Drysdale.
Last Flyers question for me, and when it comes to the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And when they make it, notice I didn't say if, when they make it to the when the Flyers make it to the playoffs, what do you believe would be their most favorable matchup? Because again, me and Rob talk about this all the time. I personally believe that when the Flyers get to the playoffs, whoever they get, that team is going to have a rude awakening, because I think the way the Flyers conduct themselves, the way they play, they're going to be so physical. They're going to be so amped up. They're going to force you to 6 or maybe 7 games because of just how pesky they are. And I firmly believe that whoever plays them in whatever series, their following series, they're going to lose it because the Flyers are going to wear them out. So again, my question to you is, what do you think is the most favorable matchup for them going into the playoffs?
That's a good question. No one's asked me that yet, so I have to think about it just for a second. But I will say this. I agree with you that if the Flyers get into the playoffs, they will be a tough out because of the way that they play. They're really good at 5-on-5, and that's important. I mean, that's where games are won and lost, really, at 5-on-5. The special teams helps. Like special teams can win a game here and there, and it supports your team. And the Flyers have a great penalty kill, one of the top 2 or 3 in the league. Their power play has not been as good, although it's been better lately. You want to avoid a team that can score like Tampa does on the power play, right? So you want to avoid those top-end skill teams, because if you give them an opportunity, as good as your penalty kill is, they're still going to score, because that's where they're so effective. So I look around the league, I look around the potential first-round matchups, and you sit there and go, okay, well, if they finish second or third, they're probably playing Carolina. Okay, if they fall to a wild card, you're getting either the Rangers or Boston. Okay, those are really the 3 possibilities right now. I mean, I guess other teams can sneak into those spots, but in all reality, that's the 3. I think of the 3, the best matchup is probably Carolina, because they're not the high octane offensive team. It's a team that is going to be, they're going to play a very similar style to you.
Rod Brindamore, kind of hardcore.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's one of those series you say, all right, well, that team's not going to pull away from us, and we're not going to pull away from them. That's a long series. That's a 5-on-5, grinded out, tough series, but it's probably the best matchup for the Flyers. The Rangers pose some problems because of their skill. The Bruins pose some problems because of their skill. I think that the Carolina, of those three teams, is probably your best matchup.
All right, last one, Ant, because I know you got to roll, and we appreciate you giving us a couple minutes. Phillies, pitchers and catchers the 14th, full squad the 19th. I can't believe it either.
Can't happen fast enough, man. I'm going down to spring training on the 3rd of March. So
I'm so jealous, man.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, I love it down there. But anyway, will we see a move made? A move that will raise an eyebrow, or will it be okay? What do you think between now and then?
I think we're more on the periphery, Rob. I really do. I will never say never with Dave Dombrowski. I hate the guy always finds a way to make a big move, and there are still some big names that have not signed.
Huge names.
And that's knowing your market, right? Yeah. That's knowing how things are working in the marketplace. And so maybe you look at it and say, we have somebody that we really like, but we don't want to pay them what they were asking for in November and December. But if this keeps pushing into February, that number could come down, and then we can get them at that price, and it works for us. I'm still not 100% convinced that going into this with the outfield that you have is the right way to go. They're banking on Rojas having a good sophomore year. He's phenomenal defensively. I'm not 100% sure he gets that bat going to where they need it to be. So that's the thing where I think you might be able to add a bat there. It would also help the bench too, because the bench does not inspire me a lot. But I think that they're pretty set as far as the pitching. They might, get some non-roster guys that are intriguing veteran players who didn't sign guaranteed contracts, who come in and maybe try and win a job in camp. And you go, oh, well, that's an interesting name, or that's an interesting name that gets added to the list. I think that might happen. But I don't, like I said, I'll never say never, but I still think that there's going to be another bat that gets added to this mix for the team.
Great. And listen, keep up the good work. You could follow him on Twitter at SanFilippo, and of course, Crossing Broad for his content, Snow the Goalie Pod, and Crossed for the Phillies content as well. And thanks for a couple minutes, man. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Anytime.
All right, take care. Anthony SanFilippo from Crossing Broad. All right, before we hit a timeout here and go full bore into the NFL stuff, Tone, Sixers got rolled last night. Although when their bench came in and Indiana's bench came in, they made it kind of a game a little bit last night, but it was just one of those games, man, from the jump. Defensively, they were not good.
It happens, man. It's an 82-game season.
Yeah.
You're not going to get your best every single night. What concerned me more was seeing Joel Embiid tweak that knee a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what concerned me more. He still played the game. He dropped 31. But
kept the streak going of 30 or more.
But that's more so what I'm paying attention to. Because in the NBA, in my humble opinion, seeding doesn't matter as much as it does in other sports. You know what I mean? Basketball seeding, okay. I mean, look, okay, in a series, you may get 3 home games. Okay, big whoop. I just feel like in basketball, seeding is the least of your worries. Once you get in, anything is possible at that point. Yeah. We've seen 7 seeds knock off 2 seeds, or 6 seeds knock off 3 seeds. Remember, Milwaukee was the last season they got knocked out in the first round, right? So it doesn't even matter where you're seated in the NBA, just get in. So I think things didn't go well. Embiid got hurt a little bit, and it just happens. It's no big deal. The Pacers are a good team. Granted, you did lose to them without Halliburton, but they did trade for Pascal Siakam, and he had a triple-double last night.
Yeah, big game. Yeah.
Right. So the Pacers are going to be a tough out regardless. They're a good team. They're well coached, but I'm not taking much out of it. My biggest concern is Joel Embiid's health, in the long term.
Yeah. Speaking of Embiid, named an All-Star starter for the Eastern Conference. No surprise there.
No surprise at all.
If it was anything other than that, it would have been a joke. Giannis, Embiid, Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, and Dame Lillard are your starters.
And here's the thing, right?
In the East.
I'm a Dame Lillard fan, big Dame Lillard guy.
Yep.
There's been a lot of controversy surrounding his starting spot. A lot of people felt like, should have went to Jalen Brunson or a Tyrese Maxey, guys who are just having better overall seasons than him right now.
Yep.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think he should not have been a starter.
Because in my opinion, it just clearly showed you it's more of a popularity contest than anything else.
Yeah, I don't think he was worthy of being a starter. I think there are
Right.
a lot of other
I
guys
think he's an all-star, but not a starter this year.
I agree. And I'll tell you, Maxey better be a reserve. And I know he had a tough night last night, but he should be a reserve. West is Joker, Durant, Luka, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and LeBron. It's LeBron's 20th All-Star game, which is
Shai Gilgeous is
incredible.
Shai Gilgeous, man, I love his game. I love everything about his game, man. I remember when he first came into the league. I think he's with the Clippers at first, right? And then he got traded to OKC. Yeah, man. Shai Gilgeous is the real deal.
He's improved a ton.
Yeah, and also for LeBron James, is that 20th consecutive? I
think it's every year he's been in the league.
That's insane.
Yeah. All-Star games February 1st. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Oh,
it really
my God.
is.
Man, shout out to LeBron, man.
It's been an amazing run. There's no question about that. All right, when we come back, some more Eagles stuff and a bunch of NFL stuff, and we will preview the AFC and NFC championship games this weekend. So we roll into the final hour of the program. Don't go anywhere. That's Tone. I'm Rob. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I want to tell you right now about Flynn Tree Services. They are an experienced, licensed, and insured Pennsylvania tree services company that will trim or remove any unwanted trees off of your property. They are experts trimming all types of trees, and they serve southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and northern Delaware. You could go to their Instagram or Facebook page for more information or a sampling of their work. Give Flynn Tree Services a call at 610-850-2848, 610-850-2848, or online at flynntreeservices.com.